What if the quietest person in the room is actually the one exerting the most psychological influence over everyone else? Understanding these hidden layers offers a profound advantage, revealing a world of rare insights that will help you see human nature through a much clearer lens. Estimates suggest that between 1/3 and 1/2 of the global population identifies as introverted, meaning millions of people are navigating life with a cognitive processing style that prioritizes internal reflection over external stimulation. As we settle into these relaxing facts, you might find it helpful to subscribe and like this journey so you can fall asleep to more of these calming explorations every night. This quiet power isn't about shyness or social anxiety, but rather a biological preference for lower levels of dopamine-driven excitement. I wonder, do you consider yourself someone who draws energy from solitude, or are you still figuring out where you land on that spectrum? Tell us your thoughts in the comments below. The dark psychology of the introvert refers not to malevolence, but to the shadow side of their personality. The intricate, often invisible mechanisms used to observe, analyze, and subtly influence environments without making a sound. Brain scans have shown that introverts often have higher blood flow in the frontal lobe, the area responsible for remembering, planning, and complex problem solving. This internal focus allows for a unique form of social monitoring, where an introvert might notice a micro-expression or a shift in tone that others completely miss during a loud conversation. It is a common misconception that introverts dislike people. Rather, they often possess a high level of social selectivity, choosing to invest their mental energy into deep connections. This selectivity is a natural survival mechanism that prevents sensory overload, as the introverted brain is more sensitive to external stimuli. This sensitivity isn't just a psychological preference, it is a fundamental difference in how your brain processes the chemical of reward, dopamine. While many people think of dopamine as a simple hit of pleasure, it is actually the fuel for our desire to seek out external stimulation, acting as a bridge between a desire and the action taken to achieve it. For an introvert, the brain's relationship with this chemical is governed by the D4-DR gene, a genetic marker that dictates how sensitive our receptors are to the world outside. If you've ever felt like the energy of a crowded room was physically pressing against your skin, or if the bright lights and loud music of a venue felt like a chaotic internal static, you might be experiencing the unique way your body handles this neurochemical flow. I'd love to hear in the comments if you've ever felt that sudden heavy battery drain in the middle of a social event and what that specific sensation feels like for you as it begins to take hold. Extroverts possess a brain chemistry that is relatively less sensitive to dopamine, which acts like a subtle dulling of the senses, requiring them to seek out bigger, louder, and more frequent rewards just to feel a sense of baseline satisfaction. Their brains are essentially wired to gamble on the environment, hunting for the next thrill or social interaction to bridge the gap between their current state and a feeling of reward. For the introvert, however, the dopamine pathway is short and incredibly reactive. This means that a situation an extrovert finds mildly stimulating can feel like a high-voltage surge to an introvert, leading to a state of biological overstimulation. When this happens, the nervous system enters a state of high alert, and the prefrontal cortex begins to struggle under the weight of too much incoming data, making it harder to think clearly or speak fluidly. When this surge occurs, the introverted brain begins to shift its reliance to a different neurotransmitter called acetylcholine. This chemical is the quiet, steady cousin of dopamine, powering the parts of the brain responsible for deep thinking, long-term memory, and calm reflection. While dopamine creates a rush that pushes us outward into the world, acetylcholine creates a glow that draws us inward toward ourselves. This is why an introvert can spend hours lost in the pages of a book or the intricate details of a creative project without ever feeling bored. They are effectively bathing their brain in a different kind of reward that doesn't require the exhaustion of social performance. The social hangover many introverts describe is not a sign of social anxiety or a lack of character, but a literal recovery period where the brain attempts to rebalance these chemical levels and clear out the excess dopamine. Scientific studies suggest that the introverted brain is simply more efficient at processing information internally, meaning it doesn't need the constant feedback loop of external validation to maintain its equilibrium. Understanding this biological blueprint can be incredibly validating, as it transforms the need for space into a personality quirk into a vital physiological requirement for health. You aren't being antisocial when you withdraw. You are simply managing a highly sensitive internal power grid that operates on a much more delicate frequency than the rest of the world. This internal balance of neurochemistry ensures that while others are scanning the horizon for the next big distraction, the introvert is busy mining the riches of their own internal landscape. Deep within this landscape, the primary fuel driving the machinery is a neurotransmitter called acetylcholine. While the world often celebrates the high-octane rush of dopamine, the introvert's brain finds its sanctuary in this quieter, more stable chemical. Before we dive deeper into how this shapes your thoughts, I'm curious, do you often find yourself needing a few extra beats to process a conversation before you feel ready to answer? Tell us in the comments about your own thinking speed and if you've ever felt pressured by the fast-paced expectations of others. This preference for acetylcholine is a fundamental biological distinction, as it is the chemical responsible for the rest and digest state of the parasympathetic nervous system. When this neurotransmitter is released, it doesn't spark a frantic need for movement or social validation. Instead, it provides a gentle, rewarding hum of satisfaction during moments of intense focus, deep reading, or solitary reflection. It is the reason an introvert can sit in a quiet room for hours perfectly content, while others might feel a growing sense of restlessness. This chemical reward system is intrinsically tied to a phenomenon known as the long path of processing. In the extroverted brain, the pathway for sensory input is relatively short and fast, moving quickly through areas where taste, touch, sight, and sound are processed. However, in the introverted brain, the neural circuit is significantly more complex and physically longer. When information enters an introvert's mind, it embarks on a scenic, deliberate journey through several critical regions of the brain. The signal travels through the frontal insular cortex, an area associated with empathy and self-reflection, and it winds its way through the hippocampus, which serves as the brain's massive library of long-term memories. This long path ensures that every new piece of information is meticulously cross-referenced with past experiences and stored knowledge. It passes through the Broca's area, the region responsible for speech, where the brain begins the intricate task of turning internal thoughts into outward words. This circuitous route is exactly why introverts are known for the pause before they speak. It is not a sign of confusion or lack of preparation. Rather, it is the physical time required for the brain to navigate this extended biological map. The signal must also visit the prefrontal cortex, the seat of complex planning and evaluation, ensuring that when the introvert finally does speak, the words are often more calculated, nuanced, and reflective of their deeper internal state. This reliance on the acetylcholine pathway fosters a profound capacity for sustained attention and the ability to find patterns that others might overlook in their haste. It creates a mental environment where focus is a natural state rather than a forced effort. Because the introvert's reward system is triggered by this inward-turning chemical, the external world can sometimes feel like a series of interruptions to a much more interesting internal conversation. The long path of processing effectively turns the mind into a high-definition filter, carefully weighing the relevance of every stimulus before deciding how to react. This biological architecture prioritizes quality of thought over speed of response, allowing the introvert to build a rich, multi-layered understanding of their environment. By the time an introvert expresses a thought, it has been vetted by their memory, their empathy, and their analytical centers, making their contributions to the world less about volume and more about the weight of their insight. While the extroverted world thrives on the sharp electric surge of the sympathetic nervous system, that ancient fight-or-flight mechanism designed for rapid-fire action, the introvert's internal landscape is governed by an entirely different biological rhythm. This is the dominance of the parasympathetic nervous system, the quiet rest and digest pathway that prioritizes conservation and internal regulation over external expansion. For an introvert, this isn't just a personality trait, it is a physical mandate for safety and stillness, where the body seeks to lower its heart rate and minimize sensory input to process the depth of its experiences. If you find yourself needing hours of silence to feel whole again, you might share your own experience with this physical shift in the comments below. When an introvert is forced to stay in throttle mode for too long, mimicking the high-octane sympathetic arousal of their extroverted peers, the body begins to signal a profound biological protest. This prolonged state of high alert is not sustainable for a system wired for deep channel processing, often manifesting as physical symptoms that many mistake for mere shyness or social anxiety. You might notice a tightening in the chest, a subtle trembling of the hands, or a cognitive fog that descends like a heavy curtain when the environment becomes too loud or unpredictable. It is the physical sensation of a battery being drained at an exponential rate, where the nervous system is screaming for a return to the parasympathetic baseline. This biological need for stillness is a protective measure, a way for the brain to stop the overwhelming influx of dopamine and switch over to acetylcholine, a neurotransmitter that rewards calm internal reflection rather than external stimulation. Scientific observations suggest that introverts have a shorter path for this calming neurochemical to travel, yet it requires a lack of distraction to function effectively. Without these periods of sanctuary, the introvert remains trapped in a state of low-level physiological stress, which can lead to chronic fatigue or a weakened immune response over time. It is a delicate balance of energy, a constant negotiation between the world's demands and the body's requirement for a slow, steady pulse. Have you ever felt that sudden physical click where your body simply decides that it has had enough of the noise? This transition back to the rest and digest state is not a luxury for the introverted mind. It is an essential restorative process that allows the nervous system to reset its equilibrium. By understanding this internal switch, we begin to see that the introvert's retreat is not an act of antisocial withdrawal, but a necessary biological homecoming to a state of equilibrium and deep-seated peace. This rhythmic oscillation between the world and the self defines the very fabric of their physical existence. Could it be that the very air around you carries a weight that others simply cannot feel? Within this exploration of the quiet mind, we find rare truths that may help you fall asleep while gaining a deeper understanding of your own nature. Research indicates that approximately 70% of individuals who identify as introverts also possess the biological trait of sensory processing sensitivity. If you find comfort in these science-backed stories for sleep, please consider liking and subscribing to join our community of curious minds. This sensitivity is not a choice, but a neurological reality, often linked to the way the brain's thalamus acts as a sophisticated gatekeeper for the senses. In the highly sensitive brain, this gate is often open wider than in others, allowing a constant stream of background noise, shifting light, and even the subtle texture of clothing to reach the conscious mind with startling intensity. Have you ever felt a specific sound or light was physically exhausting? And if so, would you share that experience in the comments below? This lack of sensory filter is central to the thalamus gating theory, which suggests that introverts are physically tuned to a higher frequency of environmental data. While most people can unconsciously ignore the hum of a distant air conditioner or the flickering of a fluorescent bulb, the sensitive brain treats these as primary signals that require active processing. In the modern landscape of the open-plan office, this constant barrage of visual and auditory stimuli can lead to a state of neural fatigue that is indistinguishable from physical pain. Such environments are often described as sensory minefields, where the brain is forced to process every footfall and hushed conversation as if it were a direct command. Tell us in the comments, do you prefer a completely silent workspace or a gentle, natural background hum? Beyond sound, the tactile world presents its own challenges, as certain fabrics or clothing tags can trigger a persistent itch in the nervous system that prevents deep concentration. Science for sleep suggests that this heightened awareness is why many introverts require long periods of darkness and silence to reset their baseline. The amygdala, the brain's emotional center, often reacts more strongly to these sensory inputs, meaning a crowded party isn't just socially tiring, it can trigger a genuine stress response in the body. How do you usually create a sanctuary for yourself when the world becomes too loud? We would love to hear your rituals in the comments. The depth of processing found in these individuals means they often notice subtle changes in their environment that others miss, such as a slight shift in a person's tone or a faint scent in the air. This biological homecoming to the self is a necessary defense against a world that is fundamentally louder than the introverted brain is designed to handle. Does the smell of rain or old books affect you more deeply than those around you? Please share your thoughts in the comments about the scents that bring you peace. As you drift toward rest, remember that your sensitivity is a testament to the complexity of your inner world. If you find peace in these relaxing facts, we invite you to subscribe and return for more bedtime listening that honors the quiet power of the mind. Sleep deeply, knowing your quiet nature is your greatest strength. While the world often views energy as a boundless resource to be spent, for an introvert, social interaction functions as a sophisticated energy economy where every word carries a hidden price tag. Imagine your internal vitality not as a constant flow, but as a biological battery that begins each day with a finite charge, one that is slowly depleted by the friction of external stimuli. Unlike those who feel invigorated by a crowded room, the introverted brain processes every facial micro-expression and tone of voice with such high-fidelity intensity that it creates a measurable metabolic cost. This isn't merely a feeling of being tired. It is a physiological reality where the prefrontal cortex begins to signal for retreat once the threshold of stimulation is crossed. Have you ever noticed a specific moment during a party where your internal low battery light suddenly flickers on? And how did that shift feel for you? In this quiet internal marketplace, not all social exchanges are taxed at the same rate. A one-on-one conversation with a trusted friend might only draw a few milliamps from the battery, functioning almost like a low power mode because the brain doesn't have to navigate the complex, unpredictable geometry of group dynamics. However, when an introvert enters a large group or a networking event, the energy math changes exponentially. The brain must track multiple conversational threads, filter out background noise, and manage the performance of social norms simultaneously, leading to a rapid drain state. This is why a 15-minute speech can feel more exhausting than 8 hours of solitary labor. Solitude, then, is not a luxury or a sign of antisocial behavior, but the only charging station available for this specific neurological makeup. During these periods of withdrawal, the parasympathetic nervous system takes over, allowing the brain to process the backlog of information gathered during social hours. Science suggests that while extroverts are fueled by the dopamine rush of the reward system in social settings, introverts are more sensitive to acetylcholine, a neurotransmitter linked to the pleasure of turning inward and calm reflection. This internal recalibration is so vital that without it, an introvert may experience a social hangover, a state of cognitive fog and physical lethargy that persists until the battery is restored through the healing power of silence. The mathematics of this energy exchange are precise. For every hour spent in the high-cost environment of the public eye, a specific non-negotiable amount of time must be spent in the sanctuary of the self. This delicate balance ensures that when the introvert does choose to speak, they do so with a battery that is full and a mind that is clear. When this delicate balance falters, the introvert enters a profound physiological rebellion known as the introvert hangover. It is not merely a feeling of being tired. It is a clinical exhaustion where the brain's ability to process new information effectively shuts down. You might notice a sudden, heavy fog settling over your thoughts, making simple decisions feel like navigating through thick wool. This cognitive haze is a biological signal that the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for complex social interaction, is overtaxed and requires immediate offline time to recalibrate. Have you ever felt that sudden, overwhelming need to go in the middle of a party? And if so, what does that physical sensation feel like for you? This burnout often manifests physically as the nervous system shifts from a state of high alert into a protective shutdown mechanism. Your limbs may feel heavy, your eyes might struggle to focus, and even the low hum of a refrigerator can suddenly feel like an abrasive roar. It is a form of sensory overload where the brain, unable to filter out further stimuli, begins to treat every sound and light as a potential threat. Irritability often follows, not because of a lack of kindness, but because the introvert's emotional bandwidth has been entirely consumed by the effort of remaining present. During these moments, the body's cortisol levels can spike, mirroring the physiological stress response one might feel during a physical confrontation. The introvert hangover is essentially a recovery period from a high-stress event, even if that event was a pleasant dinner with friends. This shutdown is a necessary, albeit frustrating, protective biological response designed to prevent a total nervous system collapse. It is the body's way of forcibly pulling the plug to preserve the integrity of the self. Many people feel a sense of guilt or shame when they reach this limit, often apologizing for their sudden withdrawal or their need to hide away in a dark room. Yet it is vital to normalize this experience as a healthy sign that your internal monitoring system is functioning correctly. Just as an athlete must rest their muscles after a marathon, the introvert must rest their neurons after a social marathon. Seeking solitude after an event isn't an act of rudeness, it is a vital act of neurological maintenance. When the mind retreats, it is busy processing the mountain of data it collected during the day, sorting through nuances and subtexts that others might have missed entirely. By honoring this need to disappear, you're not just recovering, you're allowing your brain to weave your experiences into the deep, reflective tapestry that defines the introverted perspective. This period of quiet is the only way to ensure that the next time you step into the light, you do so with your full cognitive and emotional strength intact. If you find this exploration of the quiet mind helpful, consider subscribing to join our community of curious listeners. This cycle of engagement and withdrawal is the heartbeat of the introverted life, a rhythmic pulse that keeps the inner world vibrant and the outer world manageable. It is a biological imperative that demands respect, ensuring that the sanctuary of the self remains a place of true restoration rather than a prison of exhaustion. This restorative silence is often the only thing that prepares an introvert for the taxing performance known as social camouflage, a psychological phenomenon where one intentionally mimics the behaviors of their more outgoing peers to blend in. This practice, often called masking, is not a desire to deceive, but a survival mechanism used to navigate a world that frequently rewards the loudest voice in the room. Have you ever felt like you were playing a character just to get through a dinner party? And if so, what did that version of you sound like? To successfully pass as an extrovert, an introvert must engage in a constant, conscious stream of micro-adjustments. From the deliberate widening of the eyes to signal engagement, to the forced modulation of their vocal pitch. Research into the psychology of masking suggests that this act requires significant executive function, as the brain must simultaneously suppress natural tendencies while simulating unfamiliar ones. Eye contact, which many find naturally intense or even intrusive, becomes a choreographed dance of looking away and returning at precisely the right intervals to avoid appearing disinterested. This mimicry is a form of cognitive labor that most people never notice, as introverts often become such excellent actors that their performance is indistinguishable from reality, at least in short bursts. The brain's prefrontal cortex works overtime during these interactions, managing the discrepancy between the internal state of quietude and the external display of high energy. This is why a simple hello can feel like a heavy lift. The introvert isn't just speaking, they are translating their entire being into a foreign social dialect. While this ability to adapt is a powerful tool for professional and social success, it comes with a profound psychological price tag known as authenticity fatigue. When the mask is worn too long, the barrier between the true self and the social persona can begin to blur, leading to a sense of depersonalization or emotional numbness. Scientists have observed that the physiological response to prolonged masking mirrors the symptoms of chronic stress, including elevated cortisol levels and a weakened immune response. It is a quiet, invisible exhaustion that settles deep in the bones, far beyond what a simple nap can cure. Because introverts are often highly observant, they pick up on subtle social cues that others miss, allowing them to mirror the enthusiasm of their conversation partner with startling accuracy. This high-level mimicry can lead others to believe the introvert is having the time of their life, when in reality they are internally counting the minutes until they can retreat. If you've ever found yourself checking the exit routes at a crowded event, I'd love to hear your stories in the comments about how you manage those moments of overwhelm. This hidden theater of the mind is a testament to the introvert's resilience, proving that their quiet nature is not a lack of social skill, but a different way of processing the world around them. For more calming insights into the science of the mind that help you fall asleep, please consider subscribing and joining us again for our next journey. This intricate processing often manifests as a silent psychological shape-shifting known as the chameleon effect, a phenomenon where the introvert begins to subconsciously mirror the mannerisms, speech patterns, and even the physical posture of those around them. It is rarely a calculated choice or a manipulative tactic, but rather a deeply ingrained survival strategy used to navigate the complexities of human interaction without drawing unnecessary attention. When an introvert finds themselves in a social setting that feels overwhelming or high stakes, their brain may instinctively begin to synchronize with the person they are speaking to, adopting their specific cadence or echoing their gestures to create an immediate, though perhaps artificial, sense of rapport. This social mimicry acts as a protective veil, allowing the introvert to blend into the emotional landscape of the conversation and avoid being perceived as an outsider or a source of friction. As you listen to these words, do you ever catch yourself mirroring the body language or the specific vocabulary of the person you're talking to? Perhaps even realizing it only hours after the conversation is ended? Please share your own experiences with this in the comments, as these subtle reflections offer a fascinating glimpse into how our minds seek safety in groups. This defensive blending is a masterclass in conflict avoidance, a way to harmonize with the environment so perfectly that no one thinks to challenge or scrutinize the introvert's presence. By becoming a reflection of the person across from them, the introvert ensures that they remain a safe entity in the eyes of others, effectively lowering the social temperature and preventing any potential confrontation. However, this ability is not just about protection. It is fueled by an exceptionally high level of empathy and the presence of highly active mirror neurons. Because the introverted brain often processes external stimuli with such intensity, they don't just observe the emotions of others, they absorb them. This absorption can make the introvert feel like an emotional sponge, soaking up the tension, joy, or anxiety of the room until it becomes indistinguishable from their own internal state. To manage this influx of data, they mirror the vibe of their surroundings as a way of processing it, creating a psychological bridge that allows them to exist in the space without being drained by it. While this chameleon-like quality can make an introvert appear incredibly relatable and agreeable, it often hides a complex internal labor. The effort required to constantly calibrate one's persona to match the external world leads to a profound sense of social fatigue, a lingering weight that comes from the quiet work of maintaining a social mask. It is a hidden adaptation, a way the introverted mind protects its inner sanctum by using the light of others to hide in plain sight, ensuring that while they see and feel everything, their own true essence remains safely tucked away from the prying eyes of the world. While the world often mistakes a quiet presence for passivity, this silence is actually the ultimate vantage point for a mind that operates like a high-definition recording device. The common myth of the wallflower suggests a person who is shrinking away from the world, yet in reality, the introvert is often the most active participant in the room, albeit internally. By stepping back from the central stage, they trade the spotlight for a panoramic view, allowing them to gather high-fidelity data on social dynamics that those caught in the heat of conversation completely miss. This observer's advantage is not just a preference, it is a neurological strategy where the brain prioritizes processing over projection. When you are not focused on what to say next, your cognitive resources are freed up to map the invisible architecture of a room. Introverts often notice the split-second micro-expressions, the briefest flash of annoyance or a fleeting shadow of sadness that betray a person's true feelings before their social mask can reset. They become connoisseurs of tension, feeling the subtle shift in the air when a hierarchy is challenged or when an unspoken disagreement enters the space. Have you ever noticed a tiny detail in a crowded room that everyone else seemed to overlook, and did it change how you felt about the situation? Sharing your experiences with these quiet observations in the comments can help others realize they're not alone in noticing the world this way. This Sherlock Holmes-like nature of the introverted mind allows for a level of social deduction that borders on the profound.
While the extrovert is busy navigating the what of a conversation, the introvert is analyzing the why. They track the flow of power in a meeting by watching who looks at whom for approval, or they identify the genuine bond between strangers by the synchronicity of their movements. This depth of perception is fueled by a more active cholinergic pathway in the brain, which is linked to internal reflection and long-term memory. It means that while the introvert says less, they are often building a more accurate mental model of the people around them than the most charismatic talker in the group. Sitting on the sidelines isn't an act of exclusion, it is an act of calibration. By remaining on the periphery, the introverted observer avoids the noise of their own ego, allowing them to see the raw data of human behavior without the distortion of active social pressure. They see the way a person's posture wilts when they are tired, or the specific pitch of a laugh that signals insecurity. This information is stored and synthesized, turning the quietest person in the room into the one with the deepest understanding of its undercurrents. They aren't just watching the play, they are studying the mechanics of the stage, the lighting, and the scripts that everyone else is following unconsciously. This quiet accumulation of truth is the foundation of their intuition, a silent superpower that transforms simple observation into a masterclass in human psychology, ensuring they are never truly lost, even in the loudest of crowds. Could silence be the most potent tool for control in a world that never stops talking? This quiet strength often hides a sophisticated strategy that helps us navigate the complexities of human interaction while drifting into deep relaxation. Research into interpersonal communication suggests that most people feel a physical urge to fill a gap in conversation after just 4 seconds. This phenomenon is why the introvert's natural inclination for quiet becomes a form of weaponized silence, a psychological maneuver that can shift the balance of power without a single syllable. I wonder,
Have you ever used a long pause to see how someone would react? Share your own experience with this below as we consider how this stillness functions in our daily lives. In social settings, a prolonged pause creates what is known as a pregnant silence, a period of time heavy with expectation and unspoken pressure. While the introvert is often perfectly comfortable resting in this void, the more talkative brain may perceive it as a social failure or a sign of silent judgment. If you find value in these relaxing facts and want to explore more about the quiet depths of the mind, please like and subscribe to join our journey into science for sleep. This perceived tension frequently drives the other person to keep talking, often revealing more than they originally intended just to break the pressure of the quiet. It is a subtle form of information gathering that feels entirely passive, but is in reality a masterclass in psychological leverage. Studies in behavioral psychology indicate that when a person is met with silence after making a statement, they tend to elaborate, often contradicting themselves or leaking sensitive details in an attempt to regain social approval. For the introvert, this is not necessarily about malicious manipulation, but rather a protective defense mechanism that provides a sense of safety. Silence serves as a buffer, a way to slow down the pace of an interaction that might otherwise feel overwhelming or intrusive. By withholding an immediate response, the introvert can calmly observe the micro-expressions and shifts in tone that occur when someone is forced to sit with their own thoughts. This quietude can be especially effective in negotiations, where the first person to speak often yields the most ground because they appear more anxious to reach a resolution. Beyond control, silence also acts as a psychological mirror, reflecting the other person's insecurities back at them until they feel compelled to justify their words. When an introvert refuses to join the noise, they force others to confront the echoes of their own voice, leading to a deeper self-reflection for the speaker. This mastery over the pause ensures that when the introvert does eventually choose to speak, their words carry a weight and intentionality that the surrounding chatter simply cannot match. It is a refined way of navigating the world, turning what others see as a lack of social presence into an unshakable pillar of quiet authority. This authority stems from a fundamental distinction in human interaction, the difference between merely waiting for a turn to speak and truly listening to understand. While many people spend their conversational downtime rehearsing their next point, a phenomenon psychologists call response rehearsal, the introvert's brain is often wired to absorb and synthesize information as it is delivered. Neuroimaging studies suggest that when an introvert listens, there is significant activity in the prefrontal cortex, the area of the brain responsible for complex cognitive behavior and decision-making. This means they are not just hearing sounds, they are mapping the subtext, the emotional tremors, and the unspoken intentions behind every syllable. It is this high-level, real-time processing that makes them the most sought-after confidants and therapists in any social circle, because they do not feel the biological urge to dominate the acoustic space. They create a psychological sanctuary for the speaker, allowing the other person to feel truly witnessed. Have you ever noticed how much easier it is to share a secret with someone who doesn't interrupt? Share your own experience below with that one person who seems to hear what you aren't saying, and how that silence made you feel more comfortable opening up. This silent receptivity acts as a natural vacuum that others feel an almost subconscious compulsion to fill. In social dynamics, this often leads to a profound level of trust that is rarely extended to those who are more talkative. While the world may mistake their silence for passivity or even a lack of interest, the introvert is actually engaging in a sophisticated analysis of the speaker's world. They are building a mental model of the other person's perspective, which allows them to offer insights that are startlingly accurate and deeply empathetic. This ability to read between the lines is a primary reason why introverted individuals often excel in roles that require deep observation.
By the time an introvert finally chooses to break their silence, they have already processed the entire landscape of the conversation, ensuring that their contribution isn't just noise, but a meaningful addition to the shared reality. This deep-seated patience transforms the act of listening into a powerful form of social currency, granting them a key to the inner lives of others that most will never possess. This entry into the private worlds of others is facilitated by a mental mechanism known as introverted intuition, a quiet but relentless engine of pattern recognition that operates beneath the surface of conscious thought. While the external world moves at a frantic pace, the introverted mind is often several steps ahead, not because it possesses a supernatural gift, but because it is constantly synthesizing vast amounts of subtle information that others might overlook. Research suggests that introverts often have a heightened sensitivity to environmental stimuli, which allows their brains to detect minute deviations in a person's behavior or a situation's atmosphere. This internal focus acts like a high-definition lens, sharpening the resolution of reality until hidden patterns begin to emerge from the background noise. When an introvert describes a sudden gut feeling about a person or a decision, they are actually experiencing the final output of high-speed subconscious data analysis. It is a form of thin slicing, where the brain compares current sensory input against a massive internal library of past observations and social archetypes. Have you ever experienced a sudden, inexplicable sense of knowing that turned out to be exactly right? Tell us in the comments about a time your intuition guided you through a complex situation, as these flashes of insight are a cornerstone of the quiet experience. This phenomenon occurs because the introverted brain frequently utilizes the long path for processing information, routing signals through the prefrontal cortex and the hippocampus, where complex associations and long-term memories are stored. By the time a social interaction reaches its midpoint, an introvert may have already mapped out several potential outcomes based on the subtle cues of their companion's micro-expressions, word choices, and shifts in tone. This predictive power is a hallmark of the quiet mind, which thrives on observing the underlying why behind the what. It is as if they are watching the narrative arcs of human interaction unfold in slow motion, recognizing the setup long before the climax arrives. This isn't just a social tool, it's a survival mechanism that helps the introvert navigate a world that often feels overstimulating and unpredictable. Even in moments of deep silence, the introverted brain remains remarkably active, particularly in the default mode network, a system associated with internal reflection and mental simulations. Studies using fMRI scans have shown that introverts typically have higher blood flow in these areas, indicating that their resting state is one of intense cognitive labor. This constant background processing allows them to connect disparate ideas that seem unrelated to the casual observer, leading to those eureka moments that characterize creative genius. While an introvert might appear detached or daydreaming, they are often engaged in a sophisticated simulation of future possibilities, weighing risks and rewards with a level of detail that would be exhausting for a more extroverted temperament. This depth of processing is why many introverted individuals feel a natural pull towards complex systems and long-term planning. They're less interested in the immediate, fleeting reward and more focused on the overarching trajectory of a situation. Science for sleep often highlights how this reflective nature helps regulate the nervous system, as the brain seeks to make sense of the world before engaging with it. This creates a unique form of mental resilience, as the introvert is rarely caught off guard by the shifts in human nature that they have already spent hours or even days quietly analyzing in the theater of their own mind. While the outer world sees a quiet observer, the internal landscape of an introvert is a sprawling, high-definition theater where a constant narrative unfolds. This inner monologue is not merely a stream of consciousness, it is a sophisticated, non-stop processing engine that scripts and rescripts the nuances of life as they happen. Within this private sanctuary, often described as a mind palace, An introvert might construct entire cities of thought, where every memory is shelved with meticulous care and every hypothetical future is stress-tested. It is a place where solitude is never synonymous with being alone, because the mind itself provides a cast of voices, perspectives, and characters to interact with. In this hidden space, an introvert engages in full, structured conversations with themselves, often debating the merits of a philosophical point or rehearsing the exact cadence of a sentence they may never actually speak aloud. They are the directors of elaborate internal plays, visualizing every possible outcome of a social interaction before it even begins. This constant mental activity creates a rich, textured existence that can be far more vivid than the physical reality surrounding them. Have you ever found yourself so deep in your own thoughts that the real world felt like a distant memory? I would love to hear about the most complex world you've ever built in your mind in the comments below. This depth, however, creates a unique psychological friction when it comes to communication. For an introvert, translating the vast, multi-dimensional complexity of their inner monologue into the linear, finite medium of spoken language is often an exercise in frustration. It feels like trying to pour the contents of an ocean through a tiny straw. By the time a thought is articulated, much of its nuance, color, and depth can be lost, which is why an introvert may hesitate or pause mid-sentence. They're not struggling for words, they're struggling to choose the right words from 1,000 competing options, attempting to do justice to the richness of the internal world they inhabit. This silent labor is the reason their speech is often so deliberate, as they work to bridge the gap between the infinite expanses of their mind and the limitations of the spoken word. This internal richness is a testament to the fact that while an introvert may say very little, their mind is never truly quiet. This perpetual internal noise, while a source of profound creativity, possesses a shadow side that often goes unseen by the external world, operating like an engine that lacks a reliable off switch. When an introvert finally finds the solitude they crave, the mind doesn't always settle into a peaceful stillness. Instead, it shifts into a state of high-definition playback, scrutinizing the day's events with a microscopic, sometimes unforgiving intensity. This is the realm of rumination, a dark psychological loop where the brain becomes trapped in a cycle of re-examining past conversations, dissecting tone, body language, and the perceived subtext of every word spoken. Because the introverted brain is wired to favor deep internal processing over rapid external stimulation, it can inadvertently create a mental echo chamber where minor social missteps are amplified into monumental failures. This cycle often leads to the phenomenon known as analysis paralysis, a state where the burden of considering every possible outcome and every potential consequence prevents a person from taking any action at all. For the introvert, every choice is weighted with the potential for future regret, leading to a paralysis that is as mentally exhausting as it is invisible to those standing nearby. Studies in neuroscience suggest that introverts often have a higher resting level of cortical arousal, meaning their brains are already working harder to process information, even in moments of total silence. This high baseline of intensity makes them naturally more prone to a specific type of anxiety that flourishes when the mind begins to fixate on unsolved social problems. The brain possesses a biological drive to close open loops, yet social life is rarely black and white, leaving the mind to grapple with ambiguity for hours, days, or even decades. We have likely all experienced that sudden, sharp memory of a minor social blunder from 5 or 10 years ago that suddenly resurfaces while we are trying to rest, making us shudder in the quiet of the night. I would be so interested to hear from you in the comments about your own experience with these midnight cringe memories and how you manage to quiet your mind when they arise.
This experience is a hallmark of the introverted journey, a byproduct of a brain that is exceptionally good at pattern recognition, but sometimes fails to recognize when a specific pattern no longer matters to anyone else. It is a manifestation of the Zeigarnik effect, a psychological principle stating that we remember uncompleted or interrupted tasks much more vividly than those we have finished. To an introvert, a conversation that didn't go perfectly is an uncompleted task, and the brain will continue to serve up the memory as if it were a puzzle demanding a final, impossible solution. This internal fixation is not a sign of weakness, but rather a reflection of a highly sophisticated internal monitoring system that has been dialed up just a little too high. It creates a peculiar form of mental fatigue, a weight that comes from the constant post-mortem analysis of life, where the very tools of introspection and deep thought are turned inward, transforming the sanctuary of the mind into a labyrinth of self-critique. Understanding this struggle allows us to see the quiet person in the room not as passive, but as someone navigating a complex storm of thoughts. Within this intricate mental landscape, there exists a silent mechanism of self-preservation that is as sudden as it is absolute, often referred to by psychologists as the introvert door slam. This phenomenon occurs when a threshold of emotional tolerance is crossed, leading an individual to abruptly and permanently sever ties with someone they once cared for. It is not an act of malice or a play for attention, but rather a final, weary realization that a relationship has become too taxing for the introvert's delicate internal battery. Have you ever felt that sudden, quiet moment of clarity where you knew you could never speak to someone again? And if so, what was the final straw that led to that decision? Unlike the explosive arguments or dramatic confrontations favored by more expressive personalities, the door slam is characterized by a haunting lack of noise. There is no shouting, no list of grievances, and no ultimatum. There's only a profound, hollow silence where a connection used to be. To the person on the receiving end, particularly those with extroverted leanings, this sudden disappearance can feel like a bewildering betrayal. They may search for a catalyst, a recent fight, or a specific insult, but they often find nothing because the decision was actually the result of months or years of subtle, unvoiced transgressions. These minor infractions accumulate like dust until the weight becomes unbearable, triggering a psychological off switch that cannot be flipped back. Studies in personality psychology suggest that introverts often process social interactions deeply, meaning they may endure mistreatment or border crossing for a long time, quietly hoping for a change that never comes. When the door finally slams, it is a binary state. The person moves from being a central part of the introvert's world to being a total stranger in an instant. This finality is what makes the door slam so distinct from a typical falling out. While others might leave a bridge standing for future reconciliation, the introvert often burns it to the ground and salts the earth, not out of hatred, but out of a need for peace. The energy required to maintain a fractured relationship simply becomes more expensive than the pain of loneliness. It is a protective wall built in the dark, a way to reclaim the sanctuary of the mind from an intrusive force. This behavior highlights a fascinating aspect of the introverted psyche. The ability to exist entirely within oneself means that once a person is removed from that internal space, they effectively cease to exist in the introvert's daily emotional reality. The silence that follows is not a cooling off period, it is a permanent redirection of energy. For the introvert, the decision brings a sense of profound relief, even if it is tinged with a quiet sadness for what was lost. They do not seek closure through conversation because they have already achieved it through their own internal processing. This absolute detachment is perhaps the most misunderstood weapon in the introvert's arsenal, a silent boundary that once crossed offers no path for return. It serves as a reminder that still waters run deep. And within those depths lies a powerful capacity for both intense loyalty and an equally intense, quiet departure. If you find these insights helpful into the human mind for your rest, please consider subscribing to join us for more calming journeys into the science of the self. This silent exit is the ultimate expression of an introvert's need to protect their inner world at any cost. This instinctual withdrawal is deeply rooted in the introvert's unique neurobiology, where the sudden surge of adrenaline accompanying a shouting match feels less like a call to action and more like a physical assault on the nervous system. While an extrovert might find a heated debate stimulating, the introverted brain often experiences a sharp, painful spike in cortisol when faced with aggression or high-decibel confrontation. This physiological aversion means that when voices rise, the internal systems of the introvert don't gear up for a fight. Instead, they signal a desperate need for safety and equilibrium. Have you ever felt that physical ache in your chest when someone starts yelling? And if so, what does that sensation feel like for you? This reaction is often misunderstood as weakness or submission, but it is actually a protective, freezing mechanism. In the heat of a conflict, the prefrontal cortex of an introvert, the area responsible for complex thought, can momentarily go offline as the amygdala takes over, leaving them unable to find the words to defend themselves in real time. This is why an introvert may go silent or simply walk away. Their brain is literally overwhelmed by the sensory input of the anger directed at them. They aren't conceding the point, they are simply unable to process the data under the duress of an adrenaline storm. It is only later, in the sanctuary of a quiet room and the absence of the threat, that the processing truly begins. During this post-conflict period, the introvert will meticulously replay the event, often coming up with the perfect rebuttal hours or even days after the moment has passed. This delayed processing is a hallmark of the introverted mind, which prefers to chew on information slowly and deeply rather than reacting with the rapid-fire impulsivity of those who thrive on social friction. They prioritize internal harmony over external dominance, viewing a shouting match not as a way to solve a problem, but as an irrational waste of emotional energy. By withdrawing, they're preserving their mental resources, choosing to address the issue only when the chemical fog of aggression has lifted and logic can return to the driver's seat. This calculated retreat is a sophisticated survival strategy, allowing them to navigate a loud world without losing their essential sense of self to the chaos of others' emotions. While this retreat may look like a surrender to the untrained eye, it is often the quiet commencement of a process we might call the checkmate mentality. An introvert rarely enters a significant conflict without a hidden architecture of preparation, treating a future conversation like a grandmaster treats a chessboard. They engage in intensive mental simulations, visualizing every possible move and countermove hours or even days before the first word is spoken. This internal rehearsal allows them to navigate the branching paths of a debate, anticipating retorts and refining their stance until they have secured a verbal path that requires the least amount of emotional expenditure. They are essentially time traveling through the interaction, looking back from a hypothetical future to ensure the present moment is handled with absolute care. Have you ever found that you can only truly express your deepest thoughts after you've had hours to script them in your mind? Tell us in the comments about your own experience with this need for mental preparation. For the introvert, this meticulous planning is a necessary bridge between a rich, high-resolution interior world and a fast-paced external environment that often feels clumsy. They possess a profound need for precision in language, viewing words not just as labels, but as precise weights that must balance perfectly on the scale of intent. This is why an introvert may seem to pause or stumble during a spontaneous talk. They are not searching for a thought, but are instead filtering through a vast internal thesaurus to find the exact linguistic frequency that matches their internal state. To an introvert, a misinterpreted sentence feels like a physical misalignment, a jarring error that causes genuine psychological friction.
They harbor a deep-seated hatred for being misunderstood, as being mischaracterized feels like a violation of their essential self. To combat this, many introverts turn to the written word as a sanctuary for their most complex ideas. Writing provides the luxury of reflection, allowing them to polish their thoughts until they are diamond hard and impossible to misinterpret. This reliance on the written word is a quest for clarity, ensuring that their perspective is recorded with surgical accuracy rather than being lost in the heat of a vocal exchange. They view language as a finite, precious resource to be spent wisely rather than a limitless stream to be poured out indiscriminately. This checkmate approach means that by the time an introvert finally speaks, every word serves a specific, calculated purpose. Their silence in the heat of the moment is rarely a lack of thought, but rather the sound of a complex engine idling as it calibrates a response that is intended to be final and definitive. By planning the beginning, middle, and end of a dialogue, they reclaim a sense of agency, transforming a chaotic social encounter into a structured, manageable landscape where they can finally feel heard. For more calming, sleep-friendly science and deep dives into the human mind, remember to subscribe and join us for our next journey.
This sense of reclaimed agency often manifests as a profound, silent stillness, a quality that many observers frequently mistake for indifference or a lack of feeling. In the quiet corridors of the introvert's mind, there exists a sophisticated mechanism known as emotional concealment, a psychological architecture designed to keep the internal world separate from the external gaze. While the world outside might be chaotic or demanding, an introvert often presents what researchers call a stoic mask, a neutral, composed expression that betrays nothing of the storm that may be brewing beneath the surface. You might notice them sitting quietly in a high-pressure meeting or a crowded room, appearing as the very image of tranquility, yet physiologically, they may be experiencing a state of high arousal. Their heart rate might be elevated and their cortisol levels spiking, yet the facial muscles remain disciplined and the voice stays measured. This mismatch between internal state and external presentation is not an act of deception, but a survival strategy rooted in a fundamental need for privacy. For the introvert, privacy is not merely a preference, it is a core psychological requirement, a boundary that protects their most sensitive cognitive processes from being disrupted or overwhelmed. To reveal an emotion prematurely is to invite the world into a space that hasn't been fully processed yet, and for many, this feels like an intrusion. There is often a lingering, perhaps even unconscious fear that emotional vulnerability could be used against them, that to show a flicker of fear or even a burst of excessive joy is to provide others with a map of their softest points. By maintaining this mask of calm, they retain control over who is allowed to see the person behind the curtain. It is a form of emotional gatekeeping that ensures their inner sanctum remains a sanctuary rather than a stage. Tell us in the comments if you've ever found yourself wearing this mask of calm while feeling something entirely different inside, as sharing these experiences can often help us understand the hidden weight of our own quietude. This concealment is also tied to how introverts process social threats. By not reacting outwardly, they effectively neutralize potential conflict before it can escalate, using their stillness as both a shield and a sanctuary. They understand, perhaps better than anyone, that once an emotion is expressed, it no longer belongs solely to them. It becomes public property, subject to the interpretation, judgment, and reaction of others. To keep it tucked away is to keep it safe, ensuring that their internal equilibrium remains undisturbed by the unpredictable tides of social perception. Follow along as we continue to peel back the layers of this fascinating psychological landscape. This depth of current is perhaps most visible in the introvert's unique capacity for hyperfocus, a state where the boundaries between the self and the task begin to blur into a singular meditative experience. While the modern world often celebrates the chaotic energy of multitasking, the introverted brain thrives in the singular, the narrow, and the profound. This isn't just a habit or a choice, it is a neurological alignment that allows them to enter what psychologists call flow with a startling quiet intensity. In this state, the passage of time becomes entirely irrelevant, and the external world, the ticking of a clock, the distant hum of traffic, simply ceases to exist. Have you ever found yourself so lost in a book or a project that hours passed by like fleeting minutes? Tell us in the comments what usually triggers that deep, immersive state for you. To reach these cognitive heights, isolation is merely a luxury. It is a functional necessity for the introverted mind. High-level creative or analytical work requires a clean mental environment, one free from the social static that constantly pings the introvert's observation sensors. When an introvert seeks solitude, they are not just resting, they are clearing the stage for their most complex thoughts to perform. This physical alone time provides the psychological safety required for the prefrontal cortex to engage in deep synthesis, weaving disparate ideas into a coherent whole without the persistent distraction of a colleague's gaze or the social pressure of a looming conversation. However, this intense focus comes with a hidden fragility, often known as the high cost of context switching. For an introvert, an interruption is rarely just a brief pause. It is a seismic shift that can collapse the delicate architecture of their concentration. It's as if they are building a house of cards only for a casual remark to blow it all down. Scientific observations suggest that after a single distraction, it can take a significant amount of time for the brain to return to its previous level of deep immersion. This attention residue is why a simple, quick question can feel so unexpectedly draining, as the mind struggles to reassemble the intricate layers of thought it had so carefully constructed in the silence. This necessity for unbroken time is not a sign of weakness, but a requirement for their greatest contributions to emerge. This quiet strength often manifests most profoundly in what psychologists call the servant-leader model, a philosophy where the traditional power dynamic is gently inverted. Within this framework, the introvert does not seek to sit atop a pedestal to be admired, but rather positions themselves as the foundational support for the collective. When a group is comprised of self-starters with their own creative visions, an extroverted leader's dominant presence can inadvertently stifle that energy, creating a clash of wills. Conversely, an introvert's natural inclination to listen creates a sanctuary for those ideas to breathe, expand, and eventually flourish. By leading through observation rather than through constant verbal command, they allow the unique strengths of every team member to take center stage, a trait that builds a deep and enduring sense of loyalty. I wonder, have you ever worked under a leader who seemed to value your silence as much as your input? And how did that affect your productivity? Please share your thoughts in the comments about the best leadership qualities you've encountered, as these personal reflections help us all understand the human element of psychology. This cherished aversion to the spotlight is not born from a lack of confidence, but from a strategic shift in priorities, where the mission always outweighs the ego. An introverted leader is often the first to deflect praise toward their subordinates, yet they possess a quiet, ironclad willingness to take full responsibility when things go wrong. While they might shrink from the heat of a standing ovation, they will never shrink from the heavy burden of a difficult decision or a collective failure. This creates a vital psychological safety net for the team. They know their leader is a shield rather than a judge, someone who will absorb the impact of a setback without looking for a scapegoat. In these shadows of leadership, power is exercised through calm deliberation and the careful processing of complex information before any directive is ever issued. This ensures that when an introvert finally does speak, their words carry the immense weight of careful thought, often providing a stabilizing force during turbulent times. They do not feel the need to perform authority through volume or posture. Instead, they embody it through a steady, unwavering presence that values substance over spectacle. This deliberate approach to influence ensures that progress is not just fast, but sustainable, anchored in a deep, empathetic understanding of the human elements at play. Because they spend so much time navigating their own internal landscapes, they're uniquely equipped to map the emotional and intellectual terrains of those they lead, guiding the group with a hand that is as firm as it is invisible. This unseen cartography of the mind is what allows them to move through the world with a deliberate, quiet grace, though nowhere is this more apparent than in how they manage their finite reserves of social energy. To the untrained eye, an introvert appears to navigate a gathering like anyone else, yet beneath the surface, a series of calculated maneuvers is unfolding to preserve their inner peace. They often practice the art of the late arrival, not out of a desire for attention, but to bypass the initial high-energy surge of a party where the atmosphere is most chaotic. Have you ever found yourself lingering in your car for a few extra moments just to gather your resolve before stepping into a crowded room? If you have, tell us about that quiet moment of preparation in the comments, as it is a common ritual for the observant introvert. Once inside, the introvert begins a tactical assessment of the environment, seeking out what is affectionately known as the introvert corner, a spot with a clear line of sight and a physical barrier, like a sturdy armchair or a bookshelf that provides a sense of security. If a household pet is present, you will almost certainly find the introvert there, as the uncomplicated, non-verbal connection with a dog or a cat offers a much-needed respite from the demands of human small talk. These moments are not accidental, they are strategic anchors. When the sensory input becomes too dense, the introvert employs the strategic bathroom break, not for its intended purpose, but as a sanctuary of silence where they can reset their nervous system behind a locked door. It is a brief meditation in a world that refuses to be still. As the evening wanes and the collective energy shifts, they execute their most masterful move, the Irish goodbye. They slip away without a formal farewell, avoiding the exhausting cycle of repetitive goodbyes that can drain the last of their batteries. This quiet exit isn't a sign of rudeness, but a final act of self-preservation, allowing them to return to the stillness of their own company, where they can finally begin to process the complexities of the night. By protecting their energy so fiercely, they ensure that when they do choose to engage, they can do so with their full, undistracted presence. This sanctuary of solitude is not merely a retreat from the world, but a necessary preparation for the profound depth introverts bring to their romantic lives. While the modern world often prioritizes the rapid-fire exchange of surface-level traits, the introverted heart tends to operate on a different frequency, viewing intimacy as a sacred architecture that must be built slowly and with deliberate care. This preference for deep, soul-stirring connection over the fleeting excitement of casual dating creates a unique romantic landscape where quality is never sacrificed for quantity. Many introverts identify with a demisexual orientation, a beautiful, slow-burn approach to attraction, where a strong emotional bond acts as the necessary spark for physical or romantic desire. They are rarely swayed by the immediate loud signals of traditional charm, instead finding themselves drawn to the quiet consistency of a partner's character and the subtle way their mind works over time. This makes the frantic, visual-heavy nature of modern dating apps particularly exhausting for the introverted spirit, as these platforms often strip away the very nuance and gradual unfolding that they require to feel safe and seen. In a digital environment built on split-second judgments, the introvert's desire to read between the lines and understand the unspoken layers of a person can feel like a lost art. They are looking for a symphony, not a soundbite. This brings to mind the way we all process connection in an increasingly fast-paced world. Do you find yourself energized by the light, playful nature of small talk with new people? Or do you feel a profound sense of relief and resonance when a conversation finally dives into deep, meaningful territory? Tell us about your preference for deep talk versus small talk in the comments below, as your perspective helps illuminate the diverse ways we all seek to be understood. For the introvert, once that deep connection is established, their loyalty becomes an immovable force, a steady and enduring presence that provides a rare kind of emotional security. They do not give their heart away easily, but when they do, it is with a thoroughness that encompasses a partner's smallest details, the way they take their coffee, the specific pitch of their laugh when they're truly happy, and the hidden fears they've never told anyone else. This romantic intensity is a direct byproduct of their internal richness. Because they spend so much time exploring the depths of their own inner world, they naturally seek a partner who is willing to journey into those quiet, uncharted spaces with them. They offer a love that is observant and patient, one that finds more value in a shared evening of comfortable silence than a crowded room of empty laughter. This devotion isn't just a choice, but a reflection of their neurological makeup, which favors the long-term rewards of a stable, deeply integrated relationship over the short-lived dopamine spikes of novelty. By bypassing the superficial, they create a space where vulnerability isn't just allowed, but encouraged to flourish at its own pace. This steady, unfolding process ensures that when an introvert finally invites someone into their private world, the foundation is already strong enough to weather any storm. They transform the act of knowing someone into a form of quiet, dedicated study, proving that the most powerful connections are often the ones that take the longest to bloom. This deliberate pace allows for a synchronization of souls that feels both ancient and essential, turning the quietest moments into the most meaningful milestones of a shared life. This profound inner synchronization often leads to a radical redefinition of presence, where the physical proximity of others becomes secondary to the internal state of the mind. To the unobservant eye, an introvert standing alone in a crowded ballroom might appear pitiable, yet they are often experiencing a specific type of social exhaustion that makes a room full of people feel like a desert of genuine connection. Does it ever feel to you that the loudest rooms are actually the loneliest places to be? And if so, I'd love for you to share that experience in the comments. This phenomenon highlights the stark contrast between loneliness, a painful sense of isolation, and solitude, which is a restorative and chosen state of being. While loneliness is a hunger for connection that isn't being met, solitude is a feast of self-reflection that fuels the introverted soul. For many, the act of sitting alone in a quiet room is not a sign of depression, but a creative necessity, a time when the brain's default mode network engages in the complex task of processing the day's stimuli. Society often stigmatizes the act of doing things solo, casting a shadow of judgment on those who choose to eat at a restaurant alone or watch a film in a theater without a companion. Yet for the introvert, these moments are high-level acts of self-care that allow them to engage with the world on their own terms, free from the performance of social maintenance. There is a quiet bravery in the table for one, a refusal to let the absence of a partner dictate the presence of an experience. Research into dark psychology suggests that the ability to enjoy one's own company is actually a sign of high emotional intelligence and psychological resilience, rather than social failure. This restorative quietude acts as a mental sanctuary where the nervous system can finally down-regulate after the bombardment of a loud, extroverted world. It is within these borders of solitude that the most profound insights are often born, as the mind is finally granted the silence it needs to hear its own voice. This intentional withdrawal isn't an escape from reality, but rather a deeper immersion into the self, ensuring that when the introvert does eventually emerge back into the light of the public square, they do so with a spirit that is fully replenished and uniquely their own. Did you realize that for a true introvert, a friendship is not a casual agreement, but a rare biological investment? As you drift deeper into this exploration, you might find that the way these quiet souls curate their lives is both fascinating and deeply rewarding for those they choose. This intentionality manifests most clearly in the concept of friendship tiers, a psychological architecture where not all connections are created equal. While an extrovert might view the world as a wide net of potential allies, the introvert views their social landscape as a series of concentric circles, with the most precious cargo held at the very center. The outermost rings are populated by those who see only the mask, the polite, scripted version of the introvert that handles the noise of the public square. But to move toward the center, one must pass a high barrier to entry that most people never even notice. This vetting process is a subtle form of dark psychology, where the introvert silently observes how a person reacts to silence, how they handle boundaries, and whether they possess a chaotic or calming energy. It is a slow, methodical filtering system designed to protect the introvert's limited battery from the energy vampires of the world.
If you have ever felt like you were being quietly studied by a soft-spoken friend, tell us in the comments what you think they were looking for in those moments of stillness. Once the barrier is breached and a person enters the inner circle, the rules of engagement transform entirely. The distance and coldness often associated with introversion melt away, revealing a depth of lifelong commitment that is startling in its intensity. This inner sanctum is reserved for those who have proven they do not require a performance. These relationships are defined by their low-maintenance nature, functioning more like a dormant vine than a fire that needs constant stoking. Scientific observations of introverted social patterns suggest that these individuals possess a high emotional density in their memories, allowing them to maintain the feeling of a friendship even during long periods of physical or digital absence. This leads to the most remarkable trait of the inner circle, the ability to pick up exactly where you left off after months or even years of total silence. There is no guilt, no demand for an explanation for the hiatus, and no social debt to be paid. The bond exists outside of time, rooted in a mutual understanding that the silence wasn't a rejection, but a necessary period of individual growth. Being chosen by an introvert is a testament to your own psychological safety. It means you have passed the silent tests and have been deemed a worthy steward of their internal world. As we continue this journey into the quiet mind, consider the people in your own life who allow you to exist in silence without discomfort. Such bonds are the bedrock of the introverted experience, providing a sanctuary where the self can finally be seen without the need to speak. If you have a friend you can call after years and feel no distance, share your own experience with this below, as it is one of the rarest forms of human connection. This silent sanctuary is often where the introvert feels most at home, yet a sudden piercing intrusion can shatter this peace in an instant, the sound of a ringing phone. For many, this digital siren song triggers a visceral wave of cortisol, a physiological reaction to the demand for an immediate, unpolished performance. Unlike the frantic real-time expectations of a voice call, written communication acts as a protective layer, allowing the introvert to engage with the world on their own terms. When you type a message, you are not just relaying information, you are engaging in a deliberate act of curation. The blinking cursor offers a grace period that a live conversation never could, providing the space to weigh each word, to delete a clumsy phrase, and to refine a thought until it mirrors the internal landscape perfectly. This preference for text and email isn't about a lack of social skill, but rather a profound respect for the precision of language and the energy required to project it. While a phone call demands an instant reaction, often leading to the introvert's hangover of wishing they had said something differently, a written exchange provides the luxury of reflection. It transforms a potential social minefield into a controlled medium, where the introvert can be their most authentic self without the static of social anxiety. Have you ever let a call go to voicemail just so you could text the person back 5 minutes later? Tell us about your relationship with the ringing phone in the comments, as it's a common thread in the introverted tapestry. This digital buffer allows the mind to process complex emotions at its own speed, ensuring that when the message is finally sent, it carries the weight of true intention rather than the frantic noise of a forced response. In this space,
The pressure to fill the silence vanishes, replaced by the quiet confidence of a well-chosen sentence crafted in the stillness of one's own company. This ability to edit is a form of self-preservation, a way to navigate a loud world with a quiet, steady hand, ensuring that their contribution to the conversation is as meaningful as possible. This internal curation isn't just about social grace. It is a vital defense mechanism against a phenomenon known as empathy burnout. While the world often praises the quiet listener, few see the heavy cost of absorbing the emotional frequencies of everyone in the room. Many introverts possess a heightened neurological sensitivity, essentially acting as emotional sponges that soak up the distress, anxiety, and grief of those around them without even trying. This isn't a choice, but a biological predisposition, where the mirror neuron system, the part of the brain responsible for understanding others, operates at a high level of intensity. When an introvert listens to a friend in crisis, they aren't just hearing a story. They're often experiencing a physiological echo of that pain within their own bodies. Unlike those who can skim a headline and move on, the deeply empathetic introvert often feels the weight of distant catastrophes as if they were happening in their own neighborhood. This is why many find it necessary to practice a form of radical media fasting, intentionally blocking out the news or distancing themselves from habitually negative people. It is a form of survival that requires a hard, often misunderstood boundary. They must learn to curate their emotional intake with the same precision they use for their words. This empathy block is not an act of cruelty or a lack of caring. Rather, it is the only way to prevent a total psychological collapse. By retreating and silencing the noise of the world's problems, they are able to slowly process the backlog of emotions they have collected. This restorative period of isolation allows the nervous system to return to a baseline of calm, ensuring that when they finally do return to the world, they have the strength to be truly present once again. This delicate balance between caring deeply and protecting one's own peace is a lifelong journey of learning where the world ends and where they begin. Within this boundary lies the introvert's most vital asset, the curated sanctuary. This space is far more than four walls and a roof. It is a meticulously crafted extension of their internal world. To an introvert, the home environment is sacred because it serves as the only place where they possess absolute sovereignty over every incoming signal. In the chaos of the outside world, sensory inputs are random and aggressive, but here, everything is intentional. This mastery over one's surroundings is a form of psychological self-preservation, a way to ensure that the external environment never overwhelms the internal landscape again. The specific elements of this sanctuary are chosen with the precision of a laboratory. Lighting is rarely an afterthought. Many introverts prefer soft, indirect light because high-intensity overhead bulbs can trigger sensory overstimulation and increase cortisol levels. Lowering the Kelvin temperature of a room isn't just about aesthetics. It is a biological signal to the brain that the period of social vigilance has ended. Have you ever noticed how a specific lamp or a certain shade of curtains can change your entire mood? Tell us in the comments what your one must-have item for a peaceful room is. This control extends to the very air of the sanctuary. Maintaining a slightly cooler, consistent temperature helps regulate the parasympathetic nervous system, allowing the body to drift away from the fight or flight tension that often accumulates during busy social interactions. Perhaps most critical of all is the command over silence. For the introvert, silence is not merely the absence of noise. It is a functional tool used to drown out the lingering echoes of the day's conversations. By eliminating background hums and sudden auditory spikes, the introvert allows their cognitive resources to shift from scanning for environmental threats to deep, reflective processing. I'm curious about your own internal clock. Do you find your clarity under the morning sun as an early bird, or do you feel most like yourself in the deep stillness of the night as a night owl? Tell us about your preferred rhythm in the comments. Beyond the psychological comfort, there is a physiological component to this nighttime affinity, as the lack of sensory input allows the introvert's sensitive nervous system to finally downregulate. The darkness acts as a natural filter, reducing the overwhelming data of the visual world to a manageable, soft focus. This is where the dark psychology of the introvert becomes a survival mechanism. They are not hiding from the world so much as they are waiting for the world to stop hiding them from themselves. As the moon climbs higher, the need to wear a social mask dissolves, and the true, unvarnished self is allowed to breathe in the cool, empty air of the midnight hour. This breath of unvarnished air acts as a secret catalyst for what psychologists call the incubation period, a quiet state where the mind, finally liberated from the watchful gaze of others, begins to stitch together hidden patterns that a busy social brain would naturally overlook. It is a well-documented phenomenon that solitude serves as a biological prerequisite for the kind of deep neurological synthesis required for monumental breakthroughs. When we look back at the giants of history, we see that isolation was readily a burden and almost always a choice. Isaac Newton's miraculous years of discovery occurred during a period of solitary retreat, just as the intricate, haunting poetry of Emily Dickinson was forged in the stillness of her private world. This state of being alone allows the brain's default mode network to fire with intense synchronization, acting as the primary engine for divergent thinking and complex problem-solving. One of the most fascinating aspects of this solitary creativity is the sudden deactivation of the prefrontal filter, that internal critic that usually worries about social standing and the immediate judgment of peers. In the sanctuary of silence, this filter goes quiet, granting the introvert the psychological permission to entertain weird or radical ideas that would typically be suppressed in a group setting for fear of appearing eccentric. This is where the most novel concepts are born, in a space where there is no one to perform for and no social hierarchy to navigate. You might have noticed this in your own life, the way a solution suddenly appears when you stop trying to explain the problem to others. Have you ever found that your most profound realizations arrive only when the house is silent? And what was the most unusual idea you've ever had during those quiet hours? Tell us in the comments what you've discovered about your own creative process when the world is finally asleep. Science suggests that the introverted brain handles dopamine differently, requiring far less external stimulation to feel a sense of reward. For the solitary creator, the internal aha moment is a potent enough chemical prize to sustain months of lonely effort. This bypasses the creative cliff effect, a common pitfall where groups settle on the most obvious, safe solutions to avoid conflict. The isolated introvert, however, is free to follow a thought to its most bizarre, distant, and innovative conclusion without the paralyzing weight of external criticism. It is within this vacuum of expectation that the most complex scientific theories and the most evocative works of art are meticulously constructed. This isn't merely a preference for peace, but a sophisticated psychological strategy that utilizes the absence of others to build worlds that the rest of us eventually get to live in. By retreating into themselves, they are not escaping reality, but are instead diving into a deeper layer of it, one where the whispers of intuition are finally loud enough to be heard and recorded for the ages. This inner landscape, however, is shaped profoundly by the soil in which it grows, as the value of silence shifts dramatically across the globe's invisible borders. In much of the Western world, particularly within the modern business world, where open-plan offices and collaborative brainstorming sessions are designed under the assumption that the loudest voice in the room is also the most competent, this cultural bias often suggests that leadership requires a performative magnetism, potentially overlooking the quiet, calculated precision that an introverted mind provides. It is fascinating to consider how our professional environments might change if we prioritized depth over speed. Do you feel your own workplace favors the loudest speaker or the most thoughtful listener? As we move toward the east, however, the atmosphere shifts into a more contemplative frequency. In many Asian cultures, such as Japan or South Korea, as well as in Scandinavian societies like Finland, silence is not viewed as a void to be filled, but as a space of respect and integrity. In these regions, the dark or misunderstood side of introversion is much lighter, as the ability to listen and reflect before speaking is considered a sign of maturity and strength. While a Western classroom might penalize a student for being too quiet, an Eastern one might see that same silence as a mark of deep focus and intellectual humility. This global divide reminds us that what we perceive as a personality flaw is often just a reflection of the cultural mirror we are standing in front of. Even the way we construct our cities reflects this, with some cultures prioritizing communal, high-energy hubs, while others cherish the small soul spaces of tea houses or quiet libraries. This demonstrates that the introverted experience is not a universal constant, but a delicate dance between an individual's biology and the expectations of the society that raised them. By understanding these diverse perspectives, we begin to see that the quietest person in the room might be holding a power that is only waiting for the right cultural context to be recognized. What if the survival of our entire species once rested solely on the shoulders of the most anxious, quietest individuals? It is a fascinating thought that invites us to look deeper into why nature would preserve a trait that seems to favor retreat over bold action. This evolutionary preservation suggests that being an introvert isn't a modern quirk, but a fundamental biological strategy that helped humans endure the harshest environments. Perhaps you have felt this ancient pulse yourself, and I would love for you to tell us in the comments if you've ever felt a strange sense of calm while being the lone observer in a crowded room. In the early days of human development, the century theory posits that groups needed individuals who were naturally inclined to stay behind and monitor the surroundings. While the extroverts were busy with the high-risk, high-reward activities of hunting large game, the introverts were the guardians of the hearth. They possessed a heightened sensitivity to subtle changes in the environment, a trait that allowed them to detect a predator's approach long before it became a visible threat. This cautiousness was a life-saving asset, as someone had to remain vigilant while the rest of the tribe slept or focused on the heat of the chase. This survival of the cautious ensured that the gene pool was not entirely composed of risk-takers who might inadvertently lead a group into an ambush. Beyond immediate danger, the introverted mind was uniquely suited for long-term planning and resource management. Survival in ancient climates required more than just brute force. It required the foresight to store food and prepare for the scarcity of winter. The inward-focused temperament allowed for the deep, sequential thinking necessary to calculate supplies and engineer solutions for survival during months of deep frost. While others lived in the moment of the hunt, the introvert was often the one calculating the transition of the seasons. Research into animal behavior reveals similar patterns, where sit-and-wait foragers often survive environmental shifts better than their more aggressive counterparts. In humans, this manifests as a lower threshold for stimulation, meaning an introvert's brain is naturally more alert even in a state of rest. This constant low-level vigilance served as a biological early warning system for nomadic tribes. It is a gentle reminder that every personality type has a prehistoric anchor, a reason for being that transcends our modern social preferences.
As we continue this bedtime listening, we see that the introverted brain isn't broken or shy, but is instead a finely tuned instrument of observation and endurance that nature selected to keep the rest of the tribe safe from the things they were too busy to notice. Every quiet moment spent in reflection today is an echo of a time when that same silence meant the difference between a community's extinction and its continued journey through the wild. This silence, however, is frequently misread by the modern world as a wall of coldness or a sign of an inflated ego. When an introvert remains quiet in a social setting, those around them often interpret the lack of participation as a form of silent judgment. Yet this perception is almost always a projection of the observer's own discomfort with stillness. It is fascinating how we instinctively equate verbal output with warmth while viewing a calm, unreactive presence as a mark of arrogance. This is where we must carefully distinguish between the choice to be quiet and the fear of speaking, as the two are driven by entirely different neurological engines. Shyness is fundamentally different from introversion. It is an emotional state driven by an underlying anxiety regarding social evaluation and a fear of being rejected. Introversion, conversely, is a biological preference for lower levels of external stimulation and a tendency to recharge through solitude. An introvert may be perfectly confident and entirely lack social fear, yet they choose silence because the conversation does not require their input or because they are simply observing. You might wonder, have you ever been told you look intimidating or unapproachable when you were actually just thinking about something mundane? Share your own experience with this below, as many quiet individuals find that their neutral state is often weaponized against them by those who require constant external validation. This common misunderstanding is often linked to the phenomenon colloquially termed resting bitch face, which in the context of introversion is rarely about hostility. Instead, it is the physical manifestation of a brain that has turned its resources inward to navigate an internal landscape. When an introvert is deep in thought, their facial muscles naturally relax, dropping the performative social mask that more extroverted individuals often maintain unconsciously. The lack of an active, performative smile or engaged eyebrows isn't a signal of dislike. It is the signature of a mind that is currently busy, prioritizing internal depth over external optics. Research into brain activity suggests that introverts often have higher resting levels of cortical arousal, meaning they are already mentally busy even when standing still. Because the brain is working so hard to synthesize observations and memories, it may stop sending the signals required to maintain a socially inviting expression. To an outsider, this looks like a cold stare or a deliberate snub, but to the introvert, it is simply the sound of a high-powered engine running in a quiet room.
We live in a culture that rewards the constant broadcast of accessibility, where if you're not actively projecting friendliness, you are assumed to be harboring resentment. But for the introvert, silence is not a weapon used to exclude others. It is a sanctuary used to preserve the self. This quietness is the very thing that allows them to see what others miss, even if it means being misunderstood by a world that cannot stop talking. If you find these insights into the quiet mind helpful for your bedtime listening, please feel free to subscribe for more calming science for sleep. Understanding that a blank face is often just a sign of a full mind allows us to move away from judgment and toward a more accurate appreciation of the focused, unsmiling depth that defines the introverted experience. This internal richness is not merely a private refuge, but a vital contribution to the collective human story. While the world often rewards the loudest voice, it is the quiet observer who frequently notices the subtle shifts in emotion or the hidden flaws in a complex plan that others might miss.
Introverts act as the steadying force in our social fabric, providing a depth of reflection that prevents society from moving too quickly or without direction. Your preference for solitude or your need to process the world internally is not a flaw to be corrected, but a delicate instrument to be tuned. There is a profound beauty in the way an introverted mind can transform a simple observation into a tapestry of complex thought. This quiet strength allows for a level of empathy and understanding that is often missed in the rush of constant interaction. By accepting this nature, we stop trying to fix what was never broken and begin to see the inherent grace in a life lived with intentionality and focus. Science suggests that the world functions through a necessary balance of temperaments. For every bold action, there must be a thoughtful contemplation to ground it. You are the strategist, the listener, and the one who sees the patterns in the noise. Validating this part of yourself is the first step toward a deep, unshakable peace. Your quietude is not a void, it is a reservoir. It is a space where ideas grow and where the soul finds its rhythm away from the pressures of performance. As you drift toward sleep, consider how your unique perspective adds a necessary balance to the world. The silence you carry within is a source of renewal, both for yourself and for those lucky enough to share in your insights. Embracing the quietude of your own mind is the ultimate form of self-care, a gentle acknowledgement that your way of being is both necessary and beautiful. If you find comfort in these explorations of the human psyche and the soothing nature of relaxing facts, I invite you to subscribe for more bedtime listening and calming science for sleep. There are many more mysteries to explore together, always in the quiet and always at your own pace. Sleep well, knowing that your quiet nature is a gift that the world deeply needs.